Okay, guys. So we will start with this topic, modernization of Indian tradition. It's a very simple topic. You just need to compare it with the modern elements with the traditional elements. Okay. So here, if you see this question, this is something which can be asked in general, modernization of Indian tradition, or it can be asked specifically Yogendra Singh idea of modernization of Indian tradition. Like yesterday, we have discussed about what social background of Indian nationalism. So this is something which is general social background of Indian nationalism. What is the social background which is connected to the Indian nationalism? That's what we have seen yesterday, different dimensions. But A.R. Desai, since he have written a book in this name, social background of Indian nationalism, which can be asked in connection to A.R. Desai also, because this is a thinker that you need to study. Okay. Similarly, modernization of Indian tradition, if you see here, this is something which you can write as general, how the Indian tradition got modernized, especially with the impact of West. So this is something which can be asked in general, but since Yogendra Singh have written a specific book on this, the question can be connected to this as well. So like yesterday, what we have done in the same way, first we will see this in general yesterday, and then we went with A.R. Desai, right? We connected with it with the Marxian approach and dialectics. Similarly, here also, modernization of Indian tradition, we will see in general how Indian tradition got modernized. Is it really modernized? Or are we still carrying some traditional elements? All these things we'll have to see, and then we will see what Yogendra Singh have to say about this. Okay, so this is what we are going to discuss. So here, guys, if you need to see this topic, what all things you need to know here is what is modern, okay, and then what is tradition, or what are the modern elements, what are the traditional elements. If you know this is going to be very easy. Similarly, you also need to know the something like this heterogeneous factors, okay, and then homogeneous factors. Okay, so heterogeneous factors and homogeneous factors. Heterogeneous factors means the factors which has come outside, or the outside influence with respect to modernity. Homogeneous means within, or you will see orthogenetic factors instead of homogeneous. Okay, so this two words you will see. Then we will see micro level and macro level. So we will discuss what are the micro level changes. Micro level means affecting the at the local level. Like if you see caste, family, village, all these are micro level. Okay, but if you see the systems like bureaucracy, education, all these are at the macro level. The changes which has been brought especially by the British, so these are something which you can see at the macro level. Similarly, heterogeneous means which is coming from outside. It can be with the impact of Islam or Mughals, okay, or it can be with the impact of British. But mainly, guys, when we talk about modern concept, we will discuss about the British or the Western influence, because even though Islam also had some traditional elements and they tried to maintain that traditional elements as well. So we will not be discussing about this, but since I've used this word heterogenetic changes, that means the changes which has been brought from outside, we can briefly mention about this, but this is not going to play any role in this particular lecture actually, because there is not much modern element. But when it comes to English or the influence of the West or the British, we have education, we have infrastructure, we have bureaucracy, all these discussions that we have done yesterday, economic side, the political side, the democracy concept, the rule of law, the equality before law, all these concepts you can write here. Okay, so all these are modern elements. Similarly, this modern versus tradition, you might have or remembering that we have discussed about something called as pattern variables in Parson. You can also connect there with Parson's pattern variable. That pattern variables, we are actually connected with modernity versus traditionalism, right? Ascription versus achievement. So in modern society, it is based on achievement, this is based on ascription, or you can say this is like collective orientation, this is individualistic orientation or self orientation. Here you will see universalism, universal values. Here you will see particular values. Here you will see more of equality, and here you will see more of hierarchy, and this hierarchy is based on caste. Okay, so once you know these modern elements, what are the modern elements, what are the traditional elements, what do you mean by this heterogeneous factors, heterogenetic factors, or the homogenetic factors, or the orthogenetic factors, and then at the micro level, macro level, and structural as well as cultural. When I say structural, means it is related to these very same thing, bureaucracy, because when you introduce bureaucracy, this is affecting the entire structure. When you make some changes in political setup, this is affecting the structure. Authoritarian to democracy, there is a change, this is a structural change. Or the kings to the kings, which is based on hereditary setup, and then to democracy, rule of law, all these are bringing the structural change. Cultural change means with respect to caste, what are the changes? Marriage, family, village, all these are cultural change. Okay, we have discussed with some of you, and we will be discussing in detail in future also the concepts like dominant caste or Sanskritization. Sanskritization is a concept which is given by M. N. Srinivas. So, what he is talking about through this concept of Sanskritization, normally the caste hierarchy is Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. But and who's dominant here? Brahmins are dominant. But this concept says that it is not necessarily, or the caste identity cannot be changed. You born as a Brahmin, you end as a Brahmin. You born as a Shudra, you end as a Shudra. That means there is no mobility. There is no possibility that you can change your caste. So M.N. Srinivas, through this concept of Sanskritization, is actually challenging this idea. He says even this Vaishya can be a Brahmin, provided he need to migrate to some other area and he need to claim that he is a Brahmin, and he need to adopt the lifestyle of the Brahmin. If you're doing so, if not in this generation, at least the next generation will become Brahmins. Okay, so this is how you can introduce you can introduce mobility within caste system. This is what cultural change. Similarly, the concept of dominant caste. Ah, Dominant caste. When I say dominant caste means, guys, those who don't know about these concept of Sanskritization, dominant caste, I will discuss this in the chapter of caste. Okay, so some of you have already done, some of you have not yet done. That is why I've mixed this two batch. So some of you will face this problem. Dominant caste, when I say, see, which caste is supposed to be dominant here? The Brahmins are supposed to be the dominant, then Kshatriya. But what will happen is, in some areas, the Jats can be dominant, they're not Brahmins. Yadavs can be dominant, Reddis can be dominant, the Kamas can be dominant, right? But these are, if you look into, these are not necessarily Brahmins. So, not necessarily Brahmins. Otherwise, also you can become dominant. But there are certain conditions. There should be numerical strength, there should be education, there should be land wealth, and then there should be government employment. So some conditions are satisfied, then these any of these castes can also be dominant, not only the Brahmins. So these ideas that we have seen or discussed so far, these are the cultural changes. Okay, then later when we are going to discuss now about Yogendra Singh, he will differentiate between the cultural as well as structural changes. Structural change means the changes which is happening at the structural level. Structural level means, when I say bureaucracy, it is affecting the entire Indian setup, governance setup, right? So this hierarchy which is introduced through bureaucracy, or this concept of democracy, rule of law, all these are affecting the structure. So this is what you mean by structure versus culture. So that is there. So the key words that we are going to discuss here is identify the elements related to modernity, identify the elements related to traditionalism, and how Indian tradition has been changed to modernity, like caste, okay, the caste values, village concepts, and all, how it shifted to modern education, modern concept of bureaucracy, modern concept of democracy. Traditionally, there was a concept of Jajmani system. A few of you know this, we have discussed it. Jajmani system means, in a village, the higher caste, most importantly, the higher caste will be a judgeman. Okay, and there will be different people who will be dependent on this judgeman. They are known as kamins. So this setup, and this is an obligatory relation. The kamins do maximum whatever possible from their side to the judgeman, like various services, working in their field to getting everything for them that the kamins do, and judgments will in return will take care of the comments in their needs with respect to their family, education, marriage, etc. This is how the functionalist will interpret. But the Marxist will say this is an unequal distribution of exchange, and it inherently result into exploitation of the have-nots by the have-nots here is the comments, haves here is the judgment. Okay, so how this judgmani relation, which is related to obligatory relation, has been changed to now in the present capitalistic setup, which was introduced through modernity by the British in India. How it happened? Is there any obligatory relation now? Nowhere, right? You cannot find that. Mostly contractual relation. You come, work, get the payment, go. There is no connection between these two people. Okay, only this in the monetary terms that obligation is there. There is no obligation, contractual relation. So these are the changes which has happened. Traditionalism to modernity. There are a lot of changes. In fact, when the Britishers came, their claim is, I hope you know about this white man's burden. Indian society is very traditional, and their role in India is basically to modernize India, or Indian society is uncivilized. Their role is to civilize India. But the fact is that here, even though you have, okay, there are element of modernity and everything, like after industrialization, what happened in West, if you see, is it's a drastic modernization, like a linear, directly. Okay, they totally left this feudal setup and everything. But in India, that is not the case. It is not linear. What has happened is we still maintain this caste, we still have this village, and this still obligation is there, at least in the rural areas, etc. So we are not completely modernized. There are elements of traditions which are within Indian society. So on one side, there are people who are arguing that modernization of Indian tradition with respect to the involvement of the British, or the with the involvement of the West or English, with the Western concepts and Western ideas like bureaucracy, democracy, rule of law, equality before law, changes to capitalism to from feudalism, and all these things. But at the same time, there is also other section. They are arguing that it is in a way traditionalization of modern India. Still, we are carrying this joint family values, joint family ethics. We still follow the caste, okay, at least among the, when it comes to marriage, what is more important? Why this intercaste marriage is still getting a big problem? Why this honor killing is there? It is all because still caste is prevailing. Even when it comes to politics and election and this voting, everything, you will see the involvement of caste, right? So all these are showing that, okay, on one side we are getting the modern elements, but in a way we have traditionalized in our own way the modern elements which has been came from the West. Yes, democracy has came from the West, but we have traditionalized it in a way that even the election is also based on the caste now. You cannot do that, but still this is how it is going on, right? Yeah, India jumped from primary to tertiary sector without going through industrialization. That the reason I have told you yesterday. We don't have any other option, right? I've told you 1813 charter. Why? Why we went from directly agriculture to service sector? Guys, you have to understand here. We had, it is not like that. Don't make a random statement like that. We had a balance between agriculture and industry. There was a clear cut balance between agriculture and industry during Mughals time. The artisans were flourishing and they were doing so good. So there was a balance, equal balance was there. Okay, almost 50-50 balance was there. Agriculture related people, they do their thing very well. These people also, they do their thing very well. But what happened after 1813 Charter Act? When they introduced the free trade was introduced without any protection. That means what happened? The Indian industries have got ruined completely. The artisans' life was suffered, right? So they completely, and then there is no further scope of development of Indian industries. The other industries, their industries are flourishing in England. They are taking the raw materials from here, and they are importing all the stuffs which is finished products and selling it here, and they are finding the market here. They are taking the raw material from here. All these are there. So during this period, till when? Till 1947, till they are in power, this was the problem. Then post 1947, what happened? Once we get independence, now this is going to be the time of service sector. Now if you're not dominating in service sector, then there is no choice. So automatically we have to shift. Okay, so that is what actually happened again. But there is a phase after 1905, the Swadeshi movement, and then Indian capitalists are emerging, Indian industries are emerging. All these things you can see at this period, 1905 to 1947. Okay, so that discussion anyway we have done. So just keep these points in mind. In a way, you will see some people will say that modernization of Indian tradition, that you need to write what all things have been, modernized. Okay, how the Indian tradition have modernized. But at the same time, you will also say how the traditionalization of modern India has happened. Like some of the festivals and everything, if you take, you can explain. You can even say we still follow joint family. Okay, and we are separated and we are living as nuclear family just because certain other reasons, maybe to save land from land reforms. Otherwise, if you live as a joint family, And if you collectively own the land, through land reform, when the land ceiling act is there, the government will take away your land. So it is better to split the family and stay separately, so that everybody can have some amount of land and you can save that. That is one of the reason for emergence of nuclear family. It is not just like because of we adopted modernity and we went for industrialization and we prefer nuclear family. No, we still have this joint family. We still have this joint family ethic and values that we follow in our life. Okay, so I hope all of you understood these points that I've raised. And how will you write the answer? This answer, like something which I've taken from this essential sociology, go through that. Read Wajiram also. You will get a lot of more content with respect to this. And guys, this is a general question. So what knowledge you have with respect to history also can be used here. And whatever Yogendra Singh is saying, that is very specific. That also I've already explained, and I'll go further with the PDF. Okay. So this is something which you can write in your own language with your own understanding. What all things I've told you, you can incorporate in a very good way. So that will give you a very good answer, like what we have discussed yesterday. Okay, similar way you need to answer this particular question also. So all these concepts, I repeat, we have discussed about modernization and modern and traditional elements. Then homogenetic or orthogenetic and heterogenetic factors. Okay, then micro, macro, then culture, structure. These element is what you need to see in your answer. Now how it is incorporated in the PDF, you will see that. Okay guys, so according to Yogendra Singh, modernization is a form of cultural response involving attributes which are basically universalistic and evolutionary. They are pan-humanistic across individuals, trans-ethnic, that means across the different groups, and non-ideological. Process of modernization of Indian tradition started during British rule. Okay, but it was not a linear unidirectional process as it happened in the West. Okay, but it also involved a dialectical relationship between modernity and tradition, and modern was also traditionalized in the process. I hope you got this point, and I hope you can explain this point the way I have told you, though in less significant manner. Modernization of tradition include, now what do you mean by this modernization of tradition? Change in the traditional institutions. So what are the traditional institution? These like the caste, family. So how caste has changed? But caste is completely changed or not? Not completely, right? Maybe in secular matters you can say, but still, are you claiming benefit out of caste when it comes to something reservation? Are you claiming this? Yes, you still prefer to go with caste. On one side you will say that on the basis of caste you will be alienated. Okay, you will claim that I belong to lower caste and when I go there I got alienated. But on the other side, you yourself will claim the reservation for the same, and you are taking the advantage of your low status, or this you just born in this caste. Similarly, okay, similarly, what when it comes to marriage also, caste is getting, and all the more important when it comes to democracy, which is something where you should not use it. The caste based politics or the identity politics is getting very important. So in the modern society, in the modern system also, caste is playing a very important role, and that's the reason why I've told you modern was also traditionalized. Okay, family, kinship, political and social organization, religion, and so on. So these are things which you already know. Introduction of new means of communication. You know what all things that they have done: railway, Dalhousie, telephone, telegram, telegraph, and all those things. New administrative and judicial system. Yesterday we have discussed introduction of police reform, civil service reform, judicial reform, right? All these, and education, and then rule of law, equality before law. All these things which has been introduced and which are part of the administrative and judicial changes. New types of jobs which they have introduced. Okay, a new type of scientific and rational thinking. Guys, here you can also talk about this Rajaram Mohan Roy and various social reformers. They started thinking in a more rational and in a modern way. Why Rajaram Mohan Roy is called as father of modern India? Is it because he's looking like a modern person, or he is wearing this Levi's jeans or t-shirt and everything? No, right? It is because of the way he's thinking, the rational thinking. The person who started thinking rationally and in a modern way for the first time among the Indians, he questioned all the bad religious practices like sati and all. He wanted to give education for women, right? So he actually studied everything, and progressive, somebody who can think in a progressive way. That is when you can say that person is modern. For example, you see a person who live in a very post colony, having all the modern gadgets, the mobile phone or the car and everything, but he is not able to treat his baby girl equal to baby boy. Then, even though he looks like a modern person, but his mindset is traditional. On the other hand, if you see a person who's living in a slum, don't have anything which is modern, wearing the dhoti and roaming around, but still, if he can consider his baby girl like equal to baby boy, then this person, for me, or this person is actually considered as modern. Okay, so modernity is a mindset. It is an ideological setup. If you remember in the chapter one itself, when we discussed about modernity and emergence of sociology, what we have discussed, modernity is a ideological concept. Okay, so here you can talk about them. Then these are the universalism, individualism. These are related to what? Modernity. Okay, and secularism. Question the existing beliefs of hierarchy, particularism, etc. These are the traditional values. Industrialization and urbanization changed the structure. So, structural change. Early carriers of modernization were urban middle class, who first came into the contact of the Westerners. So this is what we will be discussing separately as Westernization concept. The primary Westernized people means those who came with the contact of the Western people. Okay, those who got modern education and all. That's the primary Westernized section. Like Westernization, primary Westernization, secondary. Secondary means those people who came in contact with these people, like that. Education became a big symbol of modernization, and it influenced all aspect of tradition, food habits, dressing, language, and so on. Guys, if you see the one of the more, when we discuss about history, 1813 something happened with respect to education, 1813 Charter Act. Then mainly we will be discussing about Macular Minute, which is happening in 1835. What is the problem with this 1835 Macular Minute? If you look into this 1835 Macular Minute, they are not giving education for all, education for few. Hardly 1% of Indians are going to get education in English model and in English medium. So their complete style is changing. Okay, that is what you have written here. Their food habits and their dressing, language, and everything is changing. And what was their idea giving education to this 1%? The concept is trickle down. You throw something to the top, okay, it will automatically come down. So they will educate rest of the 99% in vernacular language was the expectation. But did that happen? It never happened. Why? This is how, even there is a very famous saying, I think Irfan Habib or very famous historian have written like this, that they became more English than English themselves. Their habits and everything has changed. Okay, you can see some of them, Lord, Sir, etc. According to Yogendra Singh, it not only impacted the cultural aspect but also the structural aspect. Okay, new social classes have emerged, power situation was altered, new political system and new economic practices led to formation of new elite classes and new deprived sections. So new elites have emerged. Some of them are again became part of the deprived section also. So somebody is benefiting, somebody is getting deprived. Like artisans is ruined now. Like they become the part of deprived section, and they, you can see they are joining in 1857 revolt in a large scale because of this. Similarly, the sharecroppers or the peasants or the actual tenants, they are also suffering. They became this deprived section. Why? The taxation is so high, and the zamin, coupled with zamindar's exploitation as well. Okay, due to industrialization and urbanization, professional class and working class emerged. Okay, trade unions emerged as new organizations. I hope all of you know about all these things. This is part of history, guys. We can't do much discussion in sociology. We don't have time also. Older economic institutions like Jajmani system perished with the arrival of money economy. So just write this as obligatory relations, which is part of the Jajmani system, to contractual relation, which is part of the capitalist setup. Okay, this is a kind of feudalist setup. Now capitalist setup. Guys, I'm going faster because I'm expecting that you can follow all this, because anyway, all these are connected to history. At least some of you have already attended my classes, so you have good knowledge. Otherwise, you have already prepared and you know that. So that is why we cannot discuss all these things which is related to history in the session. So my point here in these topics are going fast and completing this area. A modernity in India is leading to decrease in morality of people on one side, but at the same time, modernity is also talking about morality. So, if you see, there is no society which is completely based on achievement, and there is no society which is completely based on ascription. If you are talking about this traditional societies based on ascription, then the high morality, okay, it is true, but it is not necessary that 100% morality will be followed here also. Similarly, achievement, here it is based on modern and morality, moral values are coming down, but that's not necessary that every individual moral values are coming down. So write a balanced answer in that context. Both you need to say, like what we discussed in Parson, use that idea here. If you get that kind of question. And guys, you should be able to score very good if you get that kind of question. Use your thinkers, interpret in a better way. Caste and religion also remained strong and even became stronger. Yes, continue. That's a better word to use. So, modernization in some way strengthens some aspects of tradition as well. Okay, now caste is not only confined to ritual sphere only, right? Because this caste association is playing a big role when it comes to Indian democracy, guys. Okay, similarly, with respect to marriage and many other areas, casteism and caste associations is playing very, very big role. The side effects, economic system was severely damaged, like we have discussed yesterday. The introduction of their capitalism and the free trade and all this actually damaged, and we faced a lot of issues, and we discussed about the drain of wealth and all those things. Savings have came down. Okay, cultural values of Indians were represented as inferior in a prejudiced manner. Even we also now started thinking that way, right? Even uh, the way you talk also, like English is preferred, and in all these ways we even think that our culture is inferior. So modernization itself was lopsided one. Means what? Some regions have got benefit. What is that? That lead to regional inequality. So that led to urban rural inequalities. So mainly, if you remember in the beginning itself, I've told you it was mainly in the part of urban elites or the urban middle class. The urban section actually got the benefit of this modernization, not the rural area. Today, in post-British period, in the sphere of rituals and religion, also modernization has influenced tradition. Okay, like a considerable part of ritual in India has direct reference to pursuit of secular ends and morals. Like guys, Christmas, is it going to be simply the affair of a Christians? No, right? Everybody is celebrating. Similarly, some of the festivals everybody is celebrating, and it is becoming more of secular in nature. Secularization of festival, that again can be a part of your question. So simply guys, if you're getting a question like this, secularization of festivals, what you will write? This is modernization of Indian tradition. These are Indian tradition, the festivals. Christianity, forget about that. Various Indian Hindu religious festivals also you can talk. And how it is getting now secularized, how Muslims are celebrating that. Okay, all this Rakhi, this friendship day and everything, right? So you will be knowing many examples, and you can write that. Even your regional examples also you can write. Okay, so now marriage, guys, see this. Marriage is now all about how many cars are lined up outside and how many VIPs are attending, how many film stars and politicians are attending. It's all about that. It's not a just religious affair, right? The political sphere modernity, you can write democratic institutions. Economic sphere, we have discussed it many times now. So I hope you understood how the modernity have happened, which all areas, all these dimensions you write: economic, political, social, cultural. Okay, every dimension you need to bring in your answer. Now let's look into specific aspect of Yogendra Singh on modernization of Indian tradition. So guys, I repeat that social background of Indian nationalism, modernization of Indian tradition. We discussed this as general first, because this is something which you can write in general. This is also, if they're asking specific to Yogendra Singh, then after writing this part, go with this guy. Similarly, if they're asking specific to AR Desai, then after writing this, go with this. Now, even if they're not asking about these guys, if the question is simply social background of Indian nationalism, write this, then still write this. Modernization of Indian tradition, write this and then still write this. Okay. So anyway, there's a structure. Whether it is specific to Yogendra Singh they're asking, or simply in general they're asking, the structure. First general, then specific in both case. Okay. So here, he has critically examined the concept of cultural change through the various processes defined by various sociologists like uh, see guys, modernity means, I've told you many times, modernity is a mindset. Okay, modernization means it's a process. Wherever you see the word isation, it shows this. When I say secularism, it's a ideology. When I say secularization, it's a process. Okay, so wherever you see this, it's a isation, it's a process. Similarly, when I say modernity, that is an ideology, it is an ideological concept. In chapter 1 itself, when I say modernity as an ideological process or project have different dimensions: political, social, intellectual. I hope you remember that diagram also. Then modernization means what? It's a process which is coming into effect. Wherever you see the word isation, like communalism, communalization, okay, that is process. So till now, some cultural changes like Sanskritization, Westernization, little and great tradition. Little tradition means the culture of the lower section. Great tradition is actually the tradition or the culture of the elite section. Mackie Marriott gave this concept. Not there in your syllabus, that's why I've not discussed. He highlights limitations of such concepts as they explain only cultural changes and not structural changes. So, Sanskritization, Westernization, and all only highlighting the cultural dynamics, not the structural change. So, for Yogendra Singh, you need to explain this as well as this. His idea of social change or modernization is essentially combination of cultural as well as structural. So can we say, guys, this is integrated approach? He is combining culture as well as structure, like what we do in Parson. Similarly, right? Micro, macro. Then we have understood it as integrated. Here also you will see cultural and structural, micro and macro at both level. Even in cultural also you will see micro, macro. At the structural level also you will see micro, macro. I'm going to explain all those micro macro aspect again further. Okay. Yeah, it is there written here. It is an integrated approach and in analyzing social change in India and considers all factors of social change of modernization. What are the factors? Firstly, what are the sources of change? Is it from outside or inside? Or when I say orthogenetic, it is within. Change from within. Heterogenetic, change from outside. So when I say heterogenetic, I can talk about change from outside as Islam and British also, like Islamic rule as well as the British rule. But this is not significant. This is more significant. Why? Because we are actually discussing about modernization. But Islam don't have much modernization element. But uh, guys, understand when I say social change, and in that, if I talk about heterogenetic aspect, I need to bring Islam as well as British. Both are agents of social change. But when I say specific to modernization, do I need to write about Islam? No. Why? Because there is no element of modernity. But British, I need to write as part of social change as well as modernization. So social change, even though here you see the word or, but both are not the same. Social change can be not only modern, right? It can be traditional also. Okay, so Islam, they brought the social change, but again, a kind of traditional setup only. But when it comes to British, social change is there and modernization also there. So the question is about social change. I have to talk about both Islam as well as British. If the question is about modernization, I only talk about British as the heterogenetic factor. Orthogenetic means within, or homogenetic also you will see sometimes. Okay. Cultural change like Sanskritization, Westernization, Great Tradition, etc. Structural change, and we will see this at the micro and macro level. Okay. So endogenous. So when I say this orthogenetic or endogenous, heterogenetic or exogenous. Sorry, I've used this word homogeneous here. So sorry. Even I've seen some were homogeneous, but it is endogenous. Okay. Orthogenetic means it is from within. Okay. This is within. So Sanskritization, cultural changes. Okay. All these are endogamous sources. That means within orthogenetic sources. Migration, population, okay, elite circulation, succession, etc. at the structural level. So these are at the, okay, here you see, first you need to make this as one division, this as second division. Okay, and then here, what he's saying, not only at the cultural level, but also at the structural level. So within endogenetic or orthogenetic, what are the cultural change? Sanskritization, Renaissance, etc. are the cultural change. What are the structural change? Migration, population change, elite circulation, succession, all these are structural change. Similarly, here also, we will have cultural as well as structural. Okay. Heterogenetic sources include Islamic influence in the medieval period, Western influence in the modern period. In the second dimension, he sees social change in India both in terms of changes in social structure and culture. So, second dimension, we will have to see again structure as well as culture. At the cultural level, like here we have differentiated, right? Cultural change and structural change. Similarly, here where coming from outside, heterogenetic factor, what are the cultural level? Modernization of tradition took place in the form of infusion of modern values like rationality, scientific temper, modern education, urbanization, struggle against social levels, all these. Okay. According to him, theories of Sanskritization, Westernization, Little Great Tradition were an attempt to explain the cultural changes in society. On the other hand, structural level, this is the structural changes: bureaucracy, democracy, rule of law, middle class, new class of industrial elites, army, working class. All these are result of modernization of tradition in the structural terms. These were largely at the macro level and have a pan-Indian impact. So when I say macro level means, guys, you see bureaucracy across India impact, not confined to. When I say changes in caste, it is confined, it is particular, it is micro. When I say changes in family, there's also micro. Okay. Sanskrit and Sanskritization means both are different. If you have not attended those sessions, if you are part of this new batch which is going on, then I'll explain that in the coming session. Okay. Sanskritization means changing your caste mobility. That is not possible. That is not allowed. If you're born as a Shudra or if you're born as a Vaishya, you cannot be a Brahmin. But through Sanskritization, you can become. I'll discuss that. Okay. Okay, guys. So here, structural change within that further micro and macro. Like micro changes, caste, family, village, community, etc. At the lower level. Macro at the pan-Indian level, like political changes, democracy, industrialization, bureaucratic setup, okay, urban structures. All these are the macro level. Both micro and macro level structure offers resilience to the force of modernization, and there is a strain also at times. Further, there is relative independence between the two levels, and changes at the macro level often fail to have effect on micro level. This explains local cultural continuity in different parts of India and the selective syncretism. What they're saying is, at the macro level, some changes have happened. Okay, but it did not affect the micro level. So, what happened is, even though there is modernization at the macro level, in terms of democracy, in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of industrialization, in terms of urbanization, etc., but at the micro level, caste, family, judgmani system, etc., are still continuing. I hope you understood. If you divide the changes into micro and macro level changes although happened at these dimension, but still it did not completely affected the micro setup. So in some areas, in some regions, even though this macro level change is there, it failed to give an effect to the micro level. So micro level changes have continued. That means the local traditions, local setups have still continuing, the caste, family, etc. Okay. Changes in tradition started to manifest in considerable sense only after contact with the West, as earlier contact with Islam did not bring about modernization, as it also cherished values which are rooted in tradition. Islam also have some elements which is related to tradition, in fact more related to tradition only, but West, modernization. Okay. So there was a social change but not modernization. So with Islam we can say social change is there, not modernization. With West we can say social change is there, at the same time modernization is also there. But is that complete modernization? No. Still, at least at the micro level, where they can bring changes, guys, think they can bring only at the macro level, in terms of democracy, in terms of bureaucracy, the ruling and everything. So the ruling class will focus at the macro level, the pan Indian level, but still at the micro level some things will be. So can I say this is something like selective westernization or selective modernization? Yes, you can use this word also. And there is one more thinker that I've missed out here. Dipankar Gupta says all these are not westernization or modernization. This is west toxication. We have taken all those toxic elements from them, not the good elements. But not it is not apt here when we discuss about the concept of westernization in Durkee in MN Srinivas. There you can write west toxication. Even here also, if you wish to, you can write that. Okay, so keep this word in mind: west toxication, the selective modernization. Yeah, Anjali, micro level they try to bring changes. Yes, at the caste level, at the local level, they try to bring the changes. But yeah, as you said, it led to 1857 revolt, and they have realized that this 1857 revolt is mainly because of, see, they have touched the caste, right? So the upper caste sentiments was hurt, like when they introduced anti-sati resolution, widow remarriage act and all. These upper caste Hindus started thinking that the Britishers are unnecessarily interfering in their religion and their caste, and that is one of the most important reason. You can see upper caste participation in 1857 revolt very highly. Similarly, Muslims and everyone, so they don't want to touch the micro level or the cultural level. That is why they, post 1857 onwards, if you see, maximum changes which has happened at the macro level. So the micro level, this identities and that tradition actually maintained. That is what this guy Yogendra Singh is saying. There are still some traditional elements are continuing. On one side, at the macro level, modernity is there, but at the same side, on the other side, you will see traditional elements are continuing. So in a way, you can say this is a selective modernization, or you can also say it is a traditionalization of modern India. On one side they are introducing bureaucracy, but on the other side we are using caste also within this setup as well. Democracy, all this caste and all these elements are coming here. So there's a traditionalization of modern setup as well. In fact, modernization of tradition was it is there here, selective. So you write this word here itself, selective modernization in inverted comma. And yeah, it is there. Microstructure was even deliberately left undisturbed by, guys, what we have discussed is here already. This microstructure was not touched. Why? Especially after 1857 revolt, they are not dare to touch, because if they touch this, then they realize that if you touch the religion or the caste sentiments and all, they cannot further continue in India. So they don't want to create any such kind of situation, so they didn't touch. Okay, they distanced themselves from the caste and village community. It was only after communal electorate that some aspects of microstructure were significantly affected by modernizing influence. National movement and social reforms also played their part in this modernization process. He further argues that changes in tradition have been in nature of adaptive changes. Like we can adapt to any situation in traditional structure and not due to breakdown or dissociation. So we have this traditional structure like caste, family, Jajmani system, and all these. So what all changes that they have brought in, all these have adapted into these traditional setup. It is not replaced. It is not breakdown. It's adaptive, and we have this capacity of accommodating things. Thus, a form of neo-traditionalization proceeds along with modernization. This is what, guys, I've told you: traditionalization of modern India, modernization of Indian tradition, Opposite, traditionalization of modern India. So neo-traditionalization means what? Traditional elements taken, adaptive changes. So neo-traditionalization. The traditional elements are still there. Okay. Caste is still there, but to an extent, some modern elements have taken. So, guys, look into this diagram. Again, this there in Nitin Sangwan itself. So, orthogenetic means endogenous, heterogenetic means exogenous. So, this is from outside, this is from within. When it say outside, it can be Islam or British, but mainly we talk about British here. So, this is the source of change, orthogenetic as well as heterogenetic. So, first you write the source of change. Then divide this into cultural and structural. So, what are the cultural factors like Sanskritization within, Westernization from outside? I hope this part is clear. Sanskritization, we have discussed this Sanskritization and Westernization. So, this is from within, this is from outside. Now, the structural change we divide into micro and macro. Okay, micro from the within demographic changes, then the change of ruler. That is the parts, micro macro. Here migration, bureaucracy, like that. Okay, so just remember this diagram if possible, because everybody will draw this diagram if, as everyone have this book. But the concept is very important, guys, and try to interpret things in your own way. Once you read, and once you are well read in history, if you have good knowledge in history, these topics are going to be paper 1, chapter 1, this impact of colonial rule in India. These two topics is going to be very important. And guys, one question is for sure from these two topics: social background of Indian nationalism, modernization of Indian tradition. Out of this, one question is sure. And if you're lucky, you will get two questions as well. There were years they have asked two questions, but one is for sure. Okay. Yeah. Any doubts? You can turn on your mic now. You can ask. Yes, the PDF is already shared. Guys, this is again essential sociology only, direct same, but I have underlined the most important points. It's already shared in the app itself. Okay. And again, I want you to read. You need to have a good knowledge in history for this. That is very important. Obviously, you need to have history knowledge. Then only you are even going to write your mains paper, right? Without that, you're not going to clear the prelims. So once you clear the prelims, means you have a good knowledge in history, and use that knowledge here also. And read Wajiram also. And I've told you, you need to supplement these notes with something. If you need to have some more understanding, clarity, this is for writing the answer in your paper. This is enough. This is more than enough. You cannot even write up even this, but to have that clarity. Okay, I hope I have conveyed everything which is required in this. Okay, all my history knowledge also I have shared here. So to get more clarity, it is better to read that. Social religious reform movements, if you wish, you can write that. Endogenous factors, you can write that. Okay, guys. So we will stop here. See you.